mighty companion. This is Earl Purdy, and I want to welcome you to Hardcore Course in Miracles. Welcome to Hardcore Course in Miracles. I am Earl Purdy, and I want to welcome you to Hardcore Course in Miracles here on Facebook Live. I'm going to be working out of A Course in Miracles, and this broadcast is, everybody is welcome to watch it, but it is primarily geared toward Course in Miracles students who are studying A Course in Miracles because they really want to learn it. I've been sharing the Course in Miracles now for almost 38 years. 31 of those years, this is what I've been doing full time. My name is Earl Purdy. So I want to share the Course in Miracles with you. This is not an analyzation of the Course in Miracles presentation. The purpose of this presentation is to do what A Course in Miracles says. And A Course in Miracles says the most important thing is to remember the message that we're receiving. So I'm going to move really slow, and I'm going to show you how the Course in Miracles actually explains itself as it goes along. And the purpose of the Course in Miracles is for you to experience complete peace of mind. The purpose of the Course in Miracles is to give you a way of looking at things that will give you peace of mind. The goal of the Course in Miracles is to give you a way of looking at things that will give you peace of mind. Peace of mind, according to the Course in Miracles, is a totally fulfilled mind. So peace is total fulfillment. A Course in Miracles teaches that peace is total fulfillment. Peace isn't boring. Peace is total fulfillment. Peace is total fulfillment. The purpose of the Course in Miracles is to give you a way of looking at things that will give you peace of mind. The purpose of A Course in Miracles is to correct your perception of things so that you can have peace of mind. The purpose of the Course in Miracles is to give you a way of interpreting things that will give you complete peace of mind. When you study A Course in Miracles and you do the workbook, you will undo the fear and misperceptions and guilt and anger in your mind, and you will achieve a whole new way of looking at things. And this new way of looking at things is going to give you total peace of mind. Total peace of mind. And when you have total peace of mind, A Course in Miracles teaches that when you have total peace of mind, then you can hear the voice, then you can hear your inner voice. You can hear your inner guide. Would you like to know how you can hear your inner guide? I'm going to tell you how you can hear the voice of God inside of you. Don't you want to hear the voice of truth inside of you? Well, the Course in Miracles corrects your perception of things. It gives you a new way of interpreting everything that's happening in your life. And when you get that new way of interpreting everything in your life, and you use that new way of interpreting everything in your life, you're going to have peace of mind. You won't be afraid. You won't worry. You won't be concerned. When you do what the Course in Miracles teaches, and you apply it, and you use it, it's going to give you peace of mind. And the Course in Miracles teaches that when you have peace of mind, that's when you can hear your inner guidance. You have inner guidance. You have love guidance. You have love guidance. You have God guidance. And so when you learn a new way of looking at things that will give you peace of mind, you will be able to hear your guidance. And when you follow your guidance, you're going to have an ecstatically happy life. When you learn how to listen to yourself, when I learned how to listen to myself, when I learned how to listen to my real self, when you learn how to listen to your real self, then you're going to have an ecstatically happy, joyful, satisfying life. And of course, the miracles teaches you what to think so that you can have peace of mind. And when you have peace of mind, you can hear your inner guidance. Your inner guidance will answer and direct everything in your life. So I want you to know that there's a certain way that you learn A Course in Miracles. Because this is primarily directed at people who really want to study A Course in Miracles and master what the Course in Miracles is teaching. That's why I call this hardcore Course in Miracles. It's not a class that's primarily geared toward people who know nothing about it or who have not decided if they're going to do it, even though you're totally welcome to watch and benefit from this. It's primarily aimed at people who are reading it, studying it, doing the workbook lesson, trying to make sense out of it, and they know they really want to master how to have peace of mind. So I'm going to do a section that's called The Guiltless Son of God, the Guiltless Son of God, which is the same as saying the innocent child of God, the innocent child of love. I'll say it again. I'm going to be in chapter 13, The Guiltless World, on page 239, The Guiltless Son of God in A Course in Miracles. Chapter 13, on page 239, The Guiltless Son of God. The Guiltless Son of God, which is the same as saying the innocent child of God is the innocent child of love. One of my goals is to make the Course in Miracles real easy for you to hear and understand. So I'm going to give you something. Would you like to know how to make the Course in Miracles really, 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 really easy? Always remember, no matter what you're reading, always remember that no matter what you're reading, the Course in Miracles is only talking about love or fear. It's talking about love or being afraid. According to the Course in Miracles, there's not but two types of people on earth. People who are expressing love and people who are afraid. That's the only two types of emotions and feelings that the Course teaches that we have. So this section is going to be about you. It's called The Guiltless Son of God. And I'm going to give you the Course in Miracles definitions for these words. I'm going to sometimes substitute the Course in Miracles definitions for these words. I want to welcome all you mighty companions. Thank you for being online. Thank you for being here for this hardcore Course in Miracles class. Now remember, you don't have to believe the ideas. You don't have to believe the ideas. It's very important if you want to learn A Course in Miracles. It's very important to remember that you don't have to believe the ideas. You don't have to believe these ideas. You don't have to believe these ideas. The Course in Miracles says that the way to study it is to first say to yourself, I need not believe these ideas. So I'm going to hear a bunch of ideas, but I don't have to believe them. You're about to hear a bunch of ideas, but you don't have to believe them. You don't have to believe what I'm getting ready to say. You don't have to believe what I'm getting ready to say. That's what the Course says is one of the instructions. You don't have to believe it. So I'm on page 239 in the text in the Foundation for Inner Peace version of the Course in Miracles. Hello, Brother Demola, and all the rest of you that's online. Let me get you up so I can see you all better by monitoring you. I am excited about this section that I'm going to do this evening. I really am. I'm totally and completely stoked. And every week I'm going to try to obey Jesus more, who's the true author of the Course. because I'm going to more and more every day try to do the Course in Miracles the way the Course in Miracles says it should be done, instead of trying to do the Course in Miracles the way everybody else thinks it should be done, and even the other ways I think it should be done. The first paragraph says, we're in chapter 13, section 2, paragraph 1. The ultimate purpose of projection is always to get rid of guilt. The ultimate purpose. You don't have to get but one or two sentences of the Course to totally transform your mind. The ultimate purpose of projection is always to get rid of guilt. The ultimate purpose of projection is always to get rid of guilt. The Course in Miracles says projection is anger. One of the definitions of projection in A Course in Miracles is anger. So we were just told that the ultimate purpose of anger, which is projection, is always, didn't say every now and then, it says the ultimate purpose of anger is always to get rid of guilt. The ultimate purpose of anger is always to get rid of guilt. The purpose of anger is to get rid of guilt. The purpose of anger is to get rid of guilt. The purpose for getting angry is to get rid of guilt. A person who's angry is just a person that's trying to get rid of guilt. A person that's angry is a person that's trying to get rid of guilt. Whenever you get angry, whenever you get mad, you're just trying to get rid of your guilt. Whenever you get mad, what you're really trying to do is get rid of your guilt. Whenever you get angry, the purpose of it is to get rid of your guilt. The purpose of anger is to get rid of guilt. So the next time you tell somebody you're mad at them, you could say, I'm trying to get rid of my guilt at you. I am mad at you is I am trying to get rid of my guilt to you. I'm mad at you. I'm trying to put my guilt on you. I'm mad at you. I'm angry at you because you didn't get home on time last night. I'm trying to project all of my guilt on you because you didn't come home last night. And when I'm angry, I'm trying to get rid of my guilt. When you're angry, don't you know when you're angry, you're trying to get rid of guilt. You're trying to get rid of guilt. Whenever you get mad, you're trying to get rid of guilt. What are you trying to do whenever you get angry? Who knows? What are you trying to do every time you get angry? Every time you get angry, what you're trying to do is get rid of your guilt. You're trying to get rid of your guilt. You're trying to get rid of your guilt. Are you upset right now about something? Are you upset right now about something? If you're upset right now about something, you're trying to get rid of your guilt about something. You're trying to get rid of your guilt about something. So everybody, whenever somebody's angry, they're trying to get rid of their guilt about something. They're feeling guilty about something, and they're trying to get rid of it by projecting it on you. Whenever somebody is mad at you, they're trying to get rid of their guilt by projecting it on you. They're feeling guilty about something, and they're trying to get rid of it. Whenever somebody's angry at you, they feel guilty about something, and they're trying to get rid of it. They're trying to get rid of the guilt that they're feeling, and they're trying to put the guilt that they're feeling on you. Whenever somebody is angry at you, the purpose of projection, the ultimate purpose of projection is always to do what? To get rid of guilt. You notice I haven't gotten past one sentence because you don't need to get but one sentence, even though we're going to cover more than one sentence. Don't you think for a second that you need to get more than one sentence. The ultimate purpose of getting angry is always to get rid of guilt. Whenever I get mad at somebody, I'm just trying to get rid of my guilt. Whenever I get mad at somebody, I'm just trying to get rid of my guilt. Whenever I'm projecting on somebody, the ultimate purpose of projection is to get rid of guilt. Whew. Welcome to a Hardcore Course in Miracles. Thank you, Diana, for sharing and supporting me. Hello, Joanne and Jim and Lisa and everybody else that's online. May, you know something? It could just be the 10 of us, and I would be just as happy as if there was 10,000. because now I realize more than ever before, numbers don't matter. The only thing that matters is who God is sending to listen to me and be with me right now. So, the ultimate purpose of projection is always to get rid of guilt. Yet, characteristically, the ego attempts to get rid of guilt from its viewpoint only. Now, say, instead of the ego, say the fearful mind, or say the frightened mind. The ego is the fearful, frightened mind. A Course in Miracles teaches that the ego is just another name for fear. Ego is just another name for the fearful part of the mind. The fearful part of the mind, that is called the ego in A Course in Miracles. It's not talking about the Freudian version of the ego. The Course in Miracles has its own definition of the ego. And it says the ego is the separated mind. The ego is the part of your mind that thinks you are a person. The ego is the part of your mind that thinks you are a person. The ego is the part of your mind that thinks you are a human being. The ego, from a Course perspective, is the frightened part of the mind that thinks it's a separate person. So the ego is the frightened mind, the fearful mind. So wherever I see ego, when I'm reading this, I'm going to give you the definition of it, which is the fearful mind. So A Course in Miracles says, the fearful mind, the ego, attempts to get rid of guilt from its viewpoint only. The part of the mind that is afraid is trying to get rid of the guilt from its own viewpoint. You're trying to get rid of guilt, but you're trying to do it from your own way of looking at things. You're trying to get rid of guilt, but you're trying to do it from your own way of looking at things. And as much as the ego wants to retain guilt, you find guilt intolerable. You are not your ego. You are not your ego. You are not your fear. You are not your fear. You are not your fear. Your fear isn't you. Your fear is not you. Your anger is not you. The guilt is not you. The fear is not you. Your ego is not you. So the Course in Miracles says, yet characteristically, the ego, the fearful mind, attempts to get rid of guilt, but from its viewpoint only. For much as the fearful mind wants to retain guilt, as much as the frightened part of your mind wants to keep feeling guilty. There's a part of your mind that really wants to feel guilty. But you find feeling guilty all the time intolerable. You're studying this material because you can't stand feeling guilty. You're studying this material and devoted to this material because you can't stand feeling angry anymore. You can't stand feeling guilty anymore. Even though the frightened part of your mind wants you to keep feeling guilty. So the Course in Miracles is saying to us that you are tired of feeling guilty. You are tired of feeling angry. You are finding it intolerable now. You can't stand feeling guilty and afraid all the time. But there's a part of your mind that loves to make you feel guilty and afraid. The ego wants to retain guilt. The fearful part of the mind, the frightened part of the mind wants to keep feeling guilty. So the more afraid you are, the more you're going to want to feel guilty. But there's a part of you that finds it intolerable. There's a part of you that finds guilt intolerable. But why is it that we can't stand feeling guilty? The Course in Miracles says, why is it that we can't stand feeling guilty? He says, well, the reason why you can't stand feeling guilty, would you like to know why we can't stand feeling guilty according to the Course? According to the Course in Miracles, I'm about to tell you why it says we can't stand feeling guilty. It says we can't stand feeling guilty because it stands in the way of us remembering God. What's keeping you from remembering God is guilt. What is keeping you from remembering God is some part of you feels guilty. What keeps you from remembering God? What keeps you from remembering God, which is who is love? God is love, real love that created us. A Course in Miracles says, what keeps you from remembering God is guilt. When you feel guilty, you don't remember love. When you feel guilty, you don't remember love. When you feel guilty, you're not feeling love. When you feel guilty, you're not feeling love. Don't you know that when you are feeling guilt, you're not feeling love? Whenever you're feeling guilty, you're not feeling love. Whenever you feel angry and guilty and afraid, you're not feeling love. So whenever a person feels guilty, they're not remembering God. So because guilt keeps you from remembering God, since guilt keeps you from remembering love, then you find guilt intolerable because it keeps you from remembering happiness, it keeps you from remembering God, it keeps you from remembering love. Guilt keeps you from remembering God, it keeps you from remembering happiness. So the Course in Miracles says, you find guilt intolerable. And the reason why you find guilt intolerable is because it keeps you from remembering love. It keeps you from remembering God. But the Course in Miracles also said, the ego wants you to retain guilt. So the ego, which is the frightened part of the mind, the Course says it wants you to feel guilty. So remember, there's a part of you that wants you to feel guilty. Don't forget there's a part of you that wants you to feel guilty. Don't forget there's a part of you that wants you to feel guilt. Don't forget there's a part of your mind that wants you to feel guilty. Don't forget there's a part of your mind that wants to make you feel afraid. Don't forget there's a part of your mind that wants you to feel afraid. Don't forget there's a part of your mind that wants you to feel afraid. Don't forget there's a part of your mind that wants you to feel afraid. But you find feeling afraid intolerable. Because when you feel afraid, when you feel guilty, it stands in the way of remembering God, whose pull is so strong that you cannot resist it. God's pull is so strong that you can't resist it. Another name for God is love. Okay. When you experience real love, the pull of real love is so strong. The pull of love is so strong that you can't resist it. You cannot resist love. There is no such thing as resisting love. You cannot resist love. You cannot resist love. Love is God. Now, it says it right here. It says, you find guilt intolerable because it stands in the way of your remembering God. Guilt stands in the way of your remembering God. Anger stands in the way of your remembering God. But the Course also says God has a pull so strong that you can't resist it. Love has a pull that's so strong you can't resist it. So it's no such thing as really being exposed to love and being able to resist it. If we were really loving each other, we couldn't resist each other. That's one of the ways we know we don't love each other, because we can resist each other. It says it right there. Love, whose pull, God, whose pull is so strong that you can't resist it. Love's pull is so strong that I couldn't resist it. So tell yourself this. I cannot resist love. I cannot resist love. I cannot resist love. I cannot resist love. If it's love, you cannot resist it. If it's love, you cannot resist it. If it's real love, you can't resist it. If it's real love, you cannot resist it. If it's real love, you cannot resist it. You can't resist it. You can't resist real love. You can't resist God. You cannot resist God. You cannot resist God. You cannot resist love. If I am truly letting love come through me, then you couldn't resist it. You couldn't resist love. You couldn't resist love because love is God. So the reason why a person finds it you don't find guilt as intolerable because you drank too much last night. You don't find guilt too intolerable because you cursed somebody out or got mad or didn't tell the truth or did something that you thought you were ashamed of in the world. The way a master is saying, Earl, your guilt doesn't have anything to do with anything that your body does. That your guilt doesn't have anything to do with what you do in the world or don't do in the world. The Course in Miracles says, man, your guilt is coming from your guilt is coming from the ego. It's coming from the part of you that believes you deserve to be punished. Guilt is coming from the part of you that believes you deserve to be punished. Guilt is coming from your ego. Guilt is coming from the part of your mind that's afraid. Guilt is coming from the part of your mind that's afraid, and there's a part of your mind that wants you to feel guilty. But you don't want to feel guilty anymore. You are finding guilt and anger and upset intolerable. And the reason why you're finding guilt intolerable, the reason why you're tired of feeling guilty, tired of feeling upset, tired of feeling unhappy in whatever area you feel that way in, is because you know that it's keeping you from remembering God. It's keeping you from remembering love. It's keeping you from being happy. But the truth is, God's pull, your Creator's pull, the universe has a pull that is so strong. Love has a pull. And notice it says pull, P-U-L-L. It's actually saying God will pull you to God. That you can't resist God. It's like somebody trying to pull you to them, and they're much stronger than you. It doesn't matter how much you resist. If I'm stronger than you, I'm going to pull you to me. I'm going to pull you to me, which means you can't resist me. And of course, in Miracles is saying that you can't resist God. You can't resist love, and that love has a pull so strong that you can't stand feeling guilty anymore. You can't stand feeling angry anymore. And the reason why I can't stand feeling angry anymore is because I can feel love pulling me. You see, the reason why you want to change and you don't want to still be angry and upset and going off is because you're finally beginning to feel God pulling you. That's God pulling you. That's love pulling you, because you find guilt intolerable. So the Course in Miracles says, and now check this out. That isn't but, that's two sentences. That's two sentences. That's what I've covered since the top of the hour when I started. Two sentences. But you know what? You don't need but two sentences. If you really heard what the two sentences were saying, the two sentences could change your life. That's why I'm emphasizing hearing it and remembering what's being said, because if you can remember what the Course says, you will have miracles. If you can remember what it's saying, you will experience consciously. You will experience miracles. You will experience expressions of love and expressions of healing that's beyond anything you could possibly imagine. That's right, Joanne. It's very deep. I love it. Yeah, I love how you said that. Very deep sentences. That's what the Course in Miracles is. It's a book of very deep sentences. That's a great way to look at it. So when we get together for the hardcore Course in Miracles, we are getting together so that we can hear what? Very deep sentences. Very deep sentences. So I'd like to invite you to take a breath before I go to the third sentence. But before I go to the third sentence, let's see if we got what the first two were saying. Okay, the first two were saying, see, I got to see if I can remember it, okay? What the first paragraph told me. Well, the first paragraph told me that the ultimate purpose of projection is to try to get rid of my guilt. That what I'm trying to do whenever I am angry is I'm trying to get rid of my guilt. Whew. Then it told me that there was a part of me that wants to feel guilty because it doesn't think I'm worthy enough, thinks I'm separate from God. But I find feeling guilty so intolerable. I can't stand it. I can't stand feeling upset anymore. I can't stand being unhappy anymore. I can't stand feeling guilt. I can't stand feeling fear. And of course, the Miracle says when you get to the point that you just can't stand it, then that actually means that you are finding it intolerable because you know that being upset and angry all the time is keeping you from remembering your happiness. You know, being upset, angry, and feeling guilty keeps you from remembering God, keeps you from remembering love. But then it also said that God had a pull that was so strong that you couldn't resist it, that love has a pull that's so strong that you can't resist it. Of course, in Miracle says, if it's real love, you cannot resist it. If it is real love, you cannot resist real love. You cannot resist real love. If it's real, true love, you do not have the power to resist it. So the fact that you and I can resist each other means we are not really loving each other yet. Because if we were truly loving each other, you couldn't resist me and I couldn't resist you, according to this, which you don't have to believe, which you don't have to believe, which you do not have to believe. You don't have to believe one single thing that I'm saying, okay? Whenever I pause, I would love for you to take a breath, because if you take a breath, it will make all the difference in the world. Yes, it will. To take a moment to breathe. Okay. There's only one reason that a person finds guilt totally intolerable. A person finds guilt totally intolerable because they know that feeling guilty, they know that feeling angry is keeping them from remembering God. Whenever you're angry, whenever you're upset, then it's hard for you to remember God. You can't remember your peace. You can't remember your happiness. You can't remember God when you are feeling guilty. You can't remember God when you're feeling guilty. You can't remember God when you're feeling guilty. You can't remember God. The ultimate purpose of projection is always to get rid of guilt. The ultimate purpose of projection is always to get rid of guilt. Yet characteristically, the ego attempts to get rid of guilt from its viewpoint only. The ego attempts to get rid of guilt. The fearful mind tries to get rid of its guilt. The frightened mind tries to get rid of its guilt. The ego tries to get rid of its guilt by putting it on you. Another frightened, angry person, they try to get rid of their guilt by projecting it onto you. Anger is just an attempt to get rid of your guilt, to get rid of your guilt. If you're feeling guilty, you're going to get angry. When you feel guilty, you're going to get angry. Before you feel guilty, before you get angry, you have to feel guilty before you get angry. So whenever you're feeling angry, it means that you are feeling guilty about something. Whenever you feel angry and you project anger, from a course perspective, you are feeling guilty about something. If you're angry all the time, if you are angry all the time, if you're getting mad all the time about something, if you're getting angry or upset about anything, the Course says it's coming from some kind of guilt. And when you get angry and when you project, you're always trying to get rid of your anger and your guilt. When you project, when you get angry, you're always trying to get rid of your guilt. There's a part of you that loves to make you angry. There's a part of your mind that loves to get you upset. There's a part of your mind that loves to get upset. That part of your mind, you're finding that part of yourself intolerable. You're getting to the point on your spiritual path. The reason why you're studying A Course in Miracles, the reason why you're studying A Course in Miracles is because you're tired of feeling like crap in some area of your life. You're tired of feeling unhappy. You're tired of feeling guilty. You're tired of feeling angry. There's some parts of you that's tired of that. And that part of you finds anger and upset intolerable. And it finds it intolerable. It finds it intolerable because you know that being angry and upset or feeling guilty is keeping you from remembering God. It's keeping you from remembering God. And you're tired of not being able to remember God. You're tired of not being able to remember love. You're tired of not feeling complete love. And love is pulling you right now. Love is pulling you right now. That's why you can't stand feeling bad anymore. That's why you don't want to feel guilty or unhappy anymore. The reason why you don't want to feel guilty and unhappy anymore, the reason why that's becoming intolerable is because it stands in the way of you remembering your Creator. It stands in the way of your remembering God, your remembering love. Right now, the pull of love is so great that you can't resist it. And that is so what those first two sentences are saying. So on this issue, what issue? What issue? This issue of getting rid of guilt, getting rid of anger, this issue of remembering God, remembering love. He says on this issue, then the deepest split of all occurs. So there's a split. There's a split that's happened, a very deep split. He says the deepest split of all occurs. For if you are to retain guilt, if you are going to keep on feeling guilty, if you're going to keep on feeling angry, if you're going to keep on feeling afraid, if you're going to keep on feeling afraid, that's the same as saying if you are to retain guilt, then as your ego insists. So let's take that. Let's take just that part of that sentence. On this issue then, the deepest split of all occurs. For if you are to retain guilt, if you're going to keep your guilt as the ego insists, see, the ego is insisting that you're going to always be guilty. There's a part of the mind that says you're going to keep your guilt, that you're going to always be guilty. You've always been guilty. You're going to always be guilty. There's a part of the mind that believes that you are guilty and that you're going to always be guilty. And so as long as you keep your guilt, as long as a person keeps their guilt, as long as they keep their anger, then the Course says you cannot be you. And I'll read that sentence again. On this issue then, the deepest split of all occurs. On what issue? This issue of guilt. For if you are to retain guilt, as he says, if you try to keep your guilt as your ego insists, you can't be you because you are not guilty. You are innocent. So as long as you choose to feel guilty, you can't be yourself because yourself is innocent. Yourself is innocent. You are innocent. You are not guilty. You are not guilty. What you are is not guilty. You are not guilty, Your Honor. You are not guilty. The jury found you not guilty. The higher court found you not guilty. You aren't guilty. You are not guilty. And the part of you that thinks you are guilty, the part of you that will tell you right now all the things that you should be feeling guilty about, That part of you needs you to feel guilty in order to exist. But you find guilt and anger and unhappiness intolerable because you are now at the point on your spiritual path that you realize being guilty and angry and afraid keeps you from remembering your love, keeps you from remembering your joy. It keeps you from remembering God. It keeps you from remembering your happiness. And so if you're going to continue to feel guilty, if you're going to continue to feel angry, then you can't be you, because you are sweet, you are luscious, you are luscious, you are loving, you are loving, you are utter perfection. You are a priceless treasure. You are a priceless treasure. You are a priceless treasure. Only by persuading you that it is you, only by persuading you that it is you, only by persuading you that the ego is you, could the ego possibly induce you to project guilt and thereby keep guilt in your mind. Okay, by persuading you that it's you, it's only by persuading you that it's you that the ego could possibly induce you to project guilt and thereby keep it in your mind. Only by persuading you that your fearful mind is you could the fearful mind possibly induce you to project guilt. Only by persuading you that your fearful mind is you could your fearful mind possibly induce you to project your guilt. The part of your mind that's afraid is trying to convince you that that's you. The part of your mind that's afraid is trying to convince you that that frightened, upset you is you. Only by persuading you that your frightened mind is you could your frightened mind induce you to project guilt and thereby keeping guilt in your mind. Okay, right there in that one sentence, there's a lot of treasures. So let's hear that one sentence again. Only by persuading you that the ego is you, only by persuading you that the fear in your mind is you, could the fear in your mind possibly induce you to project guilt and thereby keep the guilt in your mind. So how do you keep guilt? By projecting it. The more you put your guilt and anger on someone else, it's how you keep your guilt and anger. So projecting your guilt and anger is actually how you keep your guilt and anger. It's like people are wondering, like, why is it I can't let go of my guilt? Why is it I can't let go of my anger? Why is it I can't let go of my fear? And of course, the Miracles are saying, well, the reason why you can't let go of your anger and your guilt and your fear is because you're projecting it. You're trying to get rid of it by projecting it onto others and seeing them as guilty, seeing them as guilty, seeing them as the ones who are guilty. So the Course in Miracles is saying every time you try to use anger to get rid of your guilt, you actually keep it. By giving something away is how you keep it. Giving something away is how you keep it. If giving creates receiving, if giving and receiving are the same, if you have to give something in order to receive it, then every time I give my anger to you, give my upset to you, give my blame to you, give my judgment to you, then thereby I keep it in my mind. So you keep stuff by giving it. You keep stuff by projecting it. So everything a person projects, that's what they're going to have. Whatever you project, that's what you're going to have. If you project your anger and project your guilt, it's just going to allow you to keep your own anger and guilt. So the way that you keep something is to share it, and the way to not have something is to not share it. So if you want to stop having your anger, guilt, and grievances, you need to stop sharing them. If you want to let go of your anger, guilt, and grievances, you need to stop sharing it. If you want to let go of your anger, guilt, grievances, and fear, you need to stop sharing it with others. Whatever you share, you know it's a basic universal law that whatever you share increases in your life. Whatever you share is what you have plenty of. Giving is receiving. You've learned that. I'm sure you've heard that a million times. that giving is receiving. So if you project your guilt, if you give your guilt and project your guilt, then you're going to keep it. You're going to have more and more of it. I don't care how justified you feel in projecting your anger. I do not care how justified you feel in projecting your anger. It doesn't matter how justified you feel in projecting your guilt. It doesn't matter how justified you feel to project your anger on someone. If you give it away, you're going to keep it. Whatever you give away, you're going to keep. And it doesn't matter what you give away. You can give away anger, you're going to keep it. If you give away peace, you're going to keep it. If you give away lack, you're going to keep it. If you give away out of your abundance, you're going to keep it. Whatever you keep, whatever you project, whatever you give away, you are going to keep it. So if you project your anger and your guilt and your upset on anybody else in an attempt to get rid of it, you're going to keep it. Because whenever you give something, Earl, whenever you give something, you receive it, you keep it. To receive it is to keep it. To receive it is to keep it. To give it is to receive it, is to keep it. To give it is to receive it, is to keep it. To give it, no matter what it is to receive it, no matter what it is, and therefore you keep it, no matter what it is. The law works regardless of the purpose that you use the law. So remember that there's a part of you that believes that you don't deserve to be happy. That's called the ego. The part of you that doesn't believe you deserve to be happy needs you to feel guilty. The part of you and angry and upset about something all the time. The part of you that doesn't believe you deserve to be happy, it believes you need to be punished. And the way for you to be punished is to constantly feel some form of guilt, some form of anger, some form of fear, and some form of upset. And so the Course just told us, as long as you feel that way, you can't be you, because you are glorious. You are glorious. You are powerful. You are powerful. You are loving. You are loving. You are loving. The real you, the true you, is spirit. It is spirit. It is spiritual. Your real self is spiritual. Your real self is innocent. Your real self is innocent. Your real self is loving. And so the part of your mind that's trying to convince you that you are not loving is your ego. The part of you that's trying to convince you that you are not beautiful, that is your ego. Your ego is the fearful part of your own mind that is trying to project the fear and guilt in order to get rid of it. But anything you give away, you're going to keep it in your mind. You're going to keep it in your mind. Brooke said to me, teach. That's what I want to do, Brooke. So venting your feelings, just vent it back on yourself. That's right. Let me give what I would receive. I'm looking at comments. To give it is to receive it, is to keep it. Peace, be still. I am more than my fear. I am not my ego. This message coming in right on time, divine timing. You are loving. I am glorious, powerful, and loving, and the turkey me is spiritual. Interesting statement. The ego will beat you up if you let it. We are loving. So instead of turkey, it's the true me. I love it. It's funny. You are powerful. You are loving. You are magnificence in motion. Instead of venting, I should be still with my feelings, giving compassionate attention. Anything you give away, you will keep it in your mind. Anything you give away, you will keep in your mind. I love these responses. I love these responses. We have only gone through one paragraph, like we heard earlier. What is A Course in Miracles? A book of very deep sentences. Very deep sentences. So what did that paragraph tell us? It told us that the ultimate purpose of projection is always to get rid of guilt. There's a part of you that wants to feel guilty, but there's another part of you that finds it intolerable. And it finds it intolerable because feeling guilty and upset keeps you from remembering God, from remembering love. And that love has a pull on you. Love has a pull on you that you cannot resist. That's why you are studying. And there's a split that happens because there's a part of you that wants you to keep feeling guilty and upset. But you know if you keep feeling guilty, angry, and upset, then you cannot be you. Because who you are is loving and lovable. Who you are is something that is loving and lovable. Who you are is something that's loving and lovable. But if you're upset all the time, then you can't be you. So there's a part of you that's trying to persuade you that that angry, upset, afraid part of you is you. The fearful you isn't you. The frightened you isn't you. The you that seems like it wearies isn't you. The you that thinks it's just a human being that lives a short period of time and dies, the part of you that believes that isn't you. So there's a part of you that's trying to convince you, induce you to project your guilt and to project your anger. And if you project your guilt, if you project your anger, you keep it. You keep it. And whenever you project something outward, you keep it. So the more anger and upset that a person projects out on everybody else, that's how they keep it. And you're right, Dana. That is the opposite of the world's rules, where it is believed that we have to have clutchingness for what we wish to keep, and we can't give anything out, even intangible stuff like love. Funny how that never works. Our idea of love is not based on the idea of sharing it. The ego's idea of love is based on the idea of limiting it and making love exclusive. But remember, whatever you don't share, then you cannot keep what you do not share, because everything increases by sharing it. Everything increases by sharing. So when you do not share something, you're not increasing it. I am sharing this, and I have been sharing A Course in Miracles now for 38 years this year. So you can imagine how much Course in Miracles I've given to myself. You can imagine how much I've given this material to myself. I've been teaching out of this material for over 37 years. So I've been giving it, so I've been keeping it. I've been giving it and increasing it. I've been giving it and increasing it in myself. By giving it, I'm increasing it in myself. By giving it, I am increasing it in myself. So if you give your guilt away, if you give your anger away, if you go off on people all the time and you're always sharing what you're upset about, you are keeping it. You are increasing it. You are keeping it. And it's okay, Peter, if your ego is resistant. It resists all the time anyway. That's all your ego ever does. That's all my ego ever does. So big deal. Big deal that the ego is resisting. All of you out there, if your ego is resisting what is being said, big deal. If my ego is resisting what's being said, big deal. You are not your ego. You are not your ego. You are not your fear. You are not the part of you that's resisting. So, now, it's not your ego that is listening to this. It is not your ego that made you want to watch this broadcast. It is not your ego that made you want to listen to this. Your ego doesn't want you to listen to A Course in Miracles. The part of you that feels like you're unworthy, the part of you that feels like you are separate, the part of you that feels like you are a body, the part of you that thinks it feels guilty and upset, that part of you never would get online to even watch this video. That's what's so important to remember. That it's you that wanted to watch this video. It's you that wanted to hear what was being said. It's you that wanted to be a part of this sharing tonight. Your ego doesn't want to be here. Your ego doesn't want to hear a doggone thing that's coming out of my mouth from A Course in Miracles, and mine doesn't either. So it isn't about the ego learning the Course. It's not about our ego. It's not about our fearful minds. It's about us finding it intolerable not to be happy. It's about us finding it intolerable not to remember our Creator. It's about us finding it intolerable not to remember God and love. That's what the focus should be on. The focus should be on, I can't stand not remembering God anymore. I can't stand not remembering love and abundance anymore. I feel love calling me. I feel abundance pulling me. I feel abundance pulling me. I feel love pulling me. I feel love pulling me. I feel abundance pulling me. I feel freedom pulling me. I feel freedom pulling me. I feel God pulling me. It's God is pulling you. Love is pulling you. That's why you don't want to feel bad anymore. That's why you don't want to feel afraid anymore. That's why you don't want to feel guilty anymore. That's why you want to join. That's why you're listening to this. You're doing it because love is pulling you. Love is pulling you. That's why you're studying this. That's why you keep studying it no matter how much resistance comes up. It's because love is pulling you. That is God pulling you. Earl and mighty companion. So let's look at the next paragraph. The next paragraph will be on page 240 in chapter 13, The Guiltless World, in the Course in Miracles text, Foundation for Inner Peace version. And listen to this. The ego is not you. The ego is not you. The ego is not you. Your ego is not you. Your ego is not you. Your ego is not you. Say it. My ego is not me. My ego is not me. Say it to yourself now. My ego is not me. 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 The 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 ego is not me. Your ego is not you. 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 Your fear 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 is not you. Your anger 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 is not you. Your sickness is not you. Your sickness is not you. Your sickness is not you. Your conflict is not you. Your conflict is not you. Your conflict is not you. Your guilt is not you. Your guilt is not you. My fear is not me, and I am not my fear. My fear is not me, and I am not my fear. My fear is not me. Tell yourself your fear is not you. My ego is not me. 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 Your ego is not you. Your ego is not you. Repetition, 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 repetition. I know it may drive your ego crazy sometimes, my teaching style. Some of you, you're going to love it. You're going to love my teaching style. And sometimes you're going to absolutely despise my teaching style. But you know what? Some of you are going to come back and continue to listen over and over again, regardless of however your ego reacts. And those are my students. Those are my teachers. Those are my students. And I'll give everything that I got to the fiber of my being to God's students through me. And I'm so grateful for my students who are my teachers. It's total equality. I need you as much as you need me. Take advantage of 38 years of obsession with finding my guilt intolerable and wanting to feel and experience the remembering of God, because the pull of God is so great that I cannot resist God anymore. I can't resist the truth anymore. I can't resist real love anymore. I'm glad I can resist what's not love. I'm glad that I can resist what's not love, because anybody I can resist, I don't truly love. Wherever I experience resistance, that is not where I am experiencing love, because you cannot resist love. You cannot resist true, real love. There's no such thing as resisting true love. There is no such thing as being able to resist love. Who you can resist, you're not experiencing love in that moment with. Who you can resist, you're not in that moment experiencing love with them. Wherever you have resistance, there is not love, because you cannot resist love. Love is God. You cannot resist love. That's how you know this world isn't a world of love yet, because we can all resist each other. We can all pick and choose whether or not we're going to love somebody. That's not love. You can't pick and choose who you're going to love. You can't pick and choose who you're going to love, and you can't really pick and choose who's going to love you. If it's love, you can't resist it anyway. If it's love, you don't have any choice about it anyway. So that's why you want to get rid of fear and guilt, but not by projecting it onto everybody else. You actually get rid of fear and guilt and anger by being aware of what you're feeling, taking responsibility for what you're feeling, but don't share it. So let's look at the next paragraph. We're at the 1 hour mark. And so therefore, those of you who an hour is enough, I totally get it and I understand it. And thank you for watching this much. And I'm going to go another 30 minutes because I love hearing the truth. I want to experience and remember God. I want to let go of my anger, guilt, and fear. I want to know who I really am. I want to experience total fulfillment. And 90 minutes of my time is not too much for a reward like that. So here we go. Thank you, Diana. You are a blessing. Thank you, CJ. You are a blessing. Thank you, each and every one of you, even those who are quiet. I really wish you all would share my videos, but it's up to you, and God is in charge. But I just want to ask your support in extending my teaching ministry out into the world, because I want to be a conduit for God, but I can't do it alone. You know, those of you who feel really connected and love me and want to support what's coming through me, share these videos. You can just take a moment to share it right next to the comments. Put it on your timeline. If you don't, that's okay. It's fine. But what I've learned is that you have to ask. And it's okay to ask as long as you're not attached to the outcome. And I'm not. I'll have peace whether anybody shares or not. And that's what you want. You want to have a state of mind that you're going to give yourself peace no matter what. Then you won't have to put any guilt on anybody. All right, here we go. Yet consider how strange a solution the fearful mind's arrangement is. Think about how strange a solution. So what is the Course says? What is it that the Course wants you to consider? It wants you to consider how strange a solution that your frightened part of your mind comes up with a strange solution. The frightened part of the mind comes up with a strange solution. And what is this solution? What is this solution? There's a part of your mind that's come up with a strange solution to your unhappiness and feeling guilty. There's a part of your mind that has come up with a strange solution. My mind has come up with a strange solution to my guilt and my anger. The Course in Miracles then says, you project guilt to get rid of it. Your strange solution is you try to project your anger and guilt onto others to get rid of your anger and guilt. When a person feels angry and guilty, They try to get rid of it by projecting it out on everybody else around them. Whenever you project your guilt to get rid of it, you're not really getting rid of it, but you are actually merely concealing it. You project guilt to get rid of guilt, but you are actually merely concealing guilt. You project guilt to get rid of guilt, but you are actually merely concealing guilt. So how does a person hide their guilt? How does a person hide their anger? How does a person suppress and hide their guilt and anger? They project it to get rid of it, but they're just hiding it. Whenever you project something to get rid of it, when you project guilt to get rid of guilt, you're just concealing your guilt. So how can you tell if you are guilty? How do you know if you are projecting your guilt? And how do you know if you're concealing your guilt? How do you know if you are hiding something from yourself? How do you know if you are concealing your guilt and anger from yourself? Well, here's the funny thing. If you're concealing guilt, if you're trying to hide your guilt, you still feel the guilt. So even if you're trying to hide guilt, you still feel it. And the Course says you do experience the guilt, but you have no idea why. So if you feel guilty about something and you don't know why, if you feel worried about something and you don't know why, if you feel angry about something and you don't know why, it's because you are trying to hide it. So if you feel guilt and you don't know why, it just means you're trying to hide it from yourself. And on the contrary, you associate your guilt with a weird assortment of fear or ego ideals which the ego claims you have failed. Let's take those 3 sentences right there. That was a mouthful. Okay, so the Course in Miracles says we've come up with a strange solution for getting rid of our guilt and anger. We try to project our guilt and anger to get rid of it, but that's actually just hiding from us where it's really coming from, because I think the guilt and anger is coming from my upset about you, but my guilt and anger isn't coming from my upset about you. It's coming from the fact that I already feel guilt and anger, and I'm trying to get rid of it. And so I'm really feeling guilty, but I think I'm feeling guilty, but I don't know why I'm feeling guilty. I'm feeling angry, but I don't know why I feel angry. And then he says, on the contrary, you associate it with a weird assortment of ego ideals. So what does he mean by a weird assortment of ego ideals? It's when you're feeling guilty about something that you think you've done in the body or in the world. In other words, if you think you feel guilty because you lied to somebody about a date, if you think you feel guilty because you were cruel to somebody, or if you think you feel guilty because you stole something or you cheated somebody in some way, if you feel guilty because you think your skirt's too short, if you feel guilty because you think you don't go to church enough. In other words, the Course in Miracles says, instead of you realizing that you're feeling guilty because you think you're separate from God, you're feeling guilty because there's a part of your mind that needs you to feel guilty in order to continue to exist. The ego needs you to feel guilty in order to continue to exist, because the ego is the idea that you're guilty and that you feel separate from love and that you feel separate from God. That part of you needs you to continue to feel guilty in order to exist. So it tells you that you should feel guilty about something your body has done. The ego is always going to tell you that you need to feel guilty about something that you've done in the body. Just like it says here, on the contrary, you associate it, your guilt, with a weird assortment of ego ideals, which the ego claims you failed. So I think I'm feeling guilty because I've come up with all these ideals for myself and all these standards for myself that I think I'm not living up to it, or I think I've hurt somebody or done somebody wrong. So I'm feeling guilty because of a weird assortment of ego ideals. And I'm really feeling guilty because I don't know why. But the real reason why I'm feeling guilty is because I keep projecting my anger and guilt and fear out on everybody around me. And whenever I constantly project my anger, guilt, and fear on everybody around me, then that increases the guilt. And so I still feel guilty, but I don't know why. But I think I'm feeling guilty because of something I did in the body. I think I'm feeling guilty because of something that I've done that the world says I should not have done. And so the Course says, yet you have no idea. And check that out now. Check out the first part of that sentence. It says, you have no idea. You have no idea. That means you're not aware. You're not aware. You're not aware that you're not aware of this process. He's saying you have no idea that you are failing yourself. See, you are the Son of God. You are the Son of God. Son, the Course says, means mind, and God is love. God is the creator. So you are the mind of God. You are the child of God. You are the child of God. You are the child of God. You are the child. You are God's child. You are the creator's child. You are the creator's child. And so you are, and so is everyone else, by the way. Everyone else is the creator's child. And do you know when the Course in Miracles says that you are failing yourself? You are always failing yourself. You are always failing yourself by seeing yourself as guilty. You're failing everyone else whenever you see them as guilty. The Course in Miracles says you don't have any idea that you are failing yourself every time you see yourself as bad. You're failing yourself every time you see yourself as guilty. You're failing yourself every time you see yourself as not deserving love. You're failing yourself every time you see yourself as not deserving to be happy. You're failing yourself whenever you think you don't deserve love. You're failing yourself. You are failing yourself. Stop failing yourself. Stop failing yourself. Stop failing yourself. You're failing yourself. You're failing yourself and others by seeing yourself as guilty or by seeing them as guilty. So the Course in Miracles says, believing you are no longer you. What does that mean? Well, no longer believing that you are innocent. When you don't believe that you're innocent and lovable, you are believing that you are no longer you, because you are loving. You are love. Love is what you are. Just like that song that I'm doing. It says, love is what you are. So believing that you are no longer you. Believing that you are no longer you. What does that mean? It means believing that you are no longer loved. Believing that you are no longer lovable. Believing that you are no longer innocent. You are failing yourself. Failing yourself is seeing yourself as guilty. Failing yourself is seeing someone else as guilty. But the Course says what? You have no idea that you're doing it. A person who feels guilty and angry, a person who's projecting that on everybody else, they have no idea that they're doing it. They have no idea that they're doing it. The people that you're looking at around you, they don't have any idea that they're doing the things that the Course in Miracles just described to us. So you have to remember that. You have just become aware of subconscious thought processes. This has just made you aware of hidden thought processes. So don't think necessarily that your friends or your relatives or the people around you have any idea that this process is going on that I just shared with you. It says it right here. You have no idea that you are failing yourself, the Son of God, by seeing him as guilty. Believing you are no longer you. And who are you? I am the holy child of God. I am the holy Son of God. I am the innocent mind of love. I am the innocent child of God. I am the innocent child of love. But if I think I'm guilty, if I think I'm not enough, If I feel like I'm separate from you and separate from God, then I no longer believe I am who and what I am. And I don't realize that I'm failing myself whenever I see myself as guilty. I'm failing myself whenever I see myself as unworthy. If you don't realize that you are failing yourself, you won't stop failing yourself. It's the Course in Miracles, I promise you, is written the way that it's written for a reason, even though sometimes the way that it's written can be something that brings up resistance. The Course in Miracles says, okay, you all are walking around a lot seeing yourselves as failures in one way or another. You know, there's a part of you that might be feeling that you failed in one thing or another. So the Course in Miracles says, let's work with that idea. In other words, say, I am failing myself. Every time I see myself as guilty and unworthy, I'm failing myself. Every time I see myself as not deserving love, I'm failing myself. Whenever I see myself as weak, whenever I see myself as insecure, whenever I see myself as not enough, I'm failing myself. I'm failing myself whenever I see myself as guilty, and I'm failing you. If I ever see you as guilty, I'm failing you. If I ever see you as not deserving of love, I am failing you. I am failing you. I'm not seeing you as deserving love and happiness and peace whenever I'm angry, and I'm projecting that on you. Then I'm failing you, and I'm also not believing I am who I am, which is a lovable, loving being, because no truly loving being would be seeing anyone else as truly guilty. You may see someone as making an error that needs to be corrected by God, but you wouldn't see them as truly guilty. All right. I'm going to give a quick recap in a minute of what we heard this evening. Let me tell you a secret. Let me tell you something. Listen to these videos. I post these videos on Facebook and also on YouTube and on my website, earlpurdy.com. You got links and you can watch my videos, because it's the repetition and the remembering that makes the difference. If you would like, I am a full-time teacher. This is what I love to do full-time in the world. And Course in Miracles says that some people will be sent to give you the money that you need to fulfill your function, which in that case is teaching, and some people will be sent just to show you how much you need forgiveness. So those of you who would like to make a financial expression of appreciation, go to my website, Earl Purdy, PURDY.com, earlpurdy.com. I thank you for your financial expressions of appreciation. I am sustained by the love of God. You are sustained by the love of God, and we are all channels for each other. I'm also available for one-on-one individual personal sessions where I bring all 38 years of my study and teaching into a personal situation with you, a personal situation where it's called a clarity session, where I show you how you can apply this to things that you're going through that you know you no longer want to be suffering about, or if you just want to get support to go into the next level. Go to my website, earlpurdy.com, and it will explain what I call clarity sessions. And I'm also a sacred astrologer and numerologist, and I also will use it in our sessions if that is peaceful for you to do, for me to do so. I love you. I'm here only to be truly helpful. That's why I'm here. That's why you are here. And you can watch my live Facebook Live videos on Sundays at 1 p.m. Mountain Time, on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. I do the Way of Mastery. And here on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. On Facebook, and you don't have to be a Facebook member. All you have to do is go to this link, www.facebook.com/Earl Purdy Live. That's how you can watch these presentations live. And I'm so glad to see you all communicate and share comments, and are willing to hear this and let it pour through you, because it's the remembering of it that creates the miracles. So let me do a quick review of what the main points was that we heard this evening. So take a breath and let's hear it. Let the music go through you. It's not something that's separate from what we're doing. It's part of what we're doing. Let me say it. Let's say it. Let's say it. Let's say it. The ultimate purpose of projection is always to get rid of your guilt. There's a part of you that really wants you to feel guilty, even though there's another part of you that finds guilt intolerable. Why is it that we can't stand being unhappy anymore? Why is it that we can't stand feeling guilty anymore? He says it's because it stands in the way of remembering God. You don't want anything to stand in the way of you remembering God. You don't want anything to stand in the way of remembering God. See, God is love, and we were told that the pull of love is so strong that you can't resist it. Real love's pull is so strong that you can't resist it. If you're going to keep feeling guilty and angry, then it means that you cannot be you. Because you are not guilty, you are not angry, you are not weak, you are not a body, you are not something that dies. So if you keep listening to your ego, then you can't be the powerful being that you are. Whenever you project your guilt or anger, whenever you project guilt and anger, you keep it in your mind. Whatever you project out, that's what you keep in your mind. Whenever you give something away, that's how you keep it. If you keep giving your anger away, if you keep giving judgment away, if you keep giving criticism and condemnation away, you will keep it. If you give it, you will keep it. If you give it, you will keep it. If you give it, you will keep it. If you give it. Stop feeling guilty about things that you think you disobeyed as far as what the world tells you is right and wrong. The world doesn't really know what's right and wrong. And when you feel guilty because of some rule that the world has made up, that's fooling you, because your guilt is coming from trying to project it. And when you feel guilty and you don't know why, it just means you're trying to hide your guilt and anger from yourself. You are failing yourself if you see yourself as guilty. You are failing yourself if you see yourself as guilty. You are failing yourself if you see yourself as guilty. Stop seeing 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 yourself. You are the innocent, guiltless child of God. You are the innocent, guiltless child of God. Mighty companions, it has been a total pleasure. I needed to hear this. I needed to hear this. I hope you needed to hear this. Thank you for being my students. Those of you, you know who you are. And thank you for trusting God to come through me. I want to get the blocks out of the way so that I will be irresistible, so that the love of God can come through me and you, and we won't be able to resist each other because we are each other. Thank you, CJ, for narrating. May the course be with you. Mwah.